This week's podcast is sponsored by Show Me the Money competitions. They are on Facebook, Instagram. They have a range of prizes from cash prizes, properties, holidays, and vintage cars. Join now for your chance to win.
I've got a little couple of more questions before we sort of get into a few of the films you've been in.
Yeah.
And then we'll sort of go into when I first met you.
Yeah.
Ever had a straightener?
Believe it or not, I turned up for a straightener 1995. I'd had a bit of bother, shall we say, with a few of the football lads up my way. They hadn't taken kindly to me commenting on a situation when I was doing the fanzine. There'd been a situation at an England game against Ireland, and it was a game that was abandoned against the Republic of Ireland. David Kelly, who used to play for Newcastle, had scored. Ireland were 1-0 up. Then there was a crowd disturbance and the game got abandoned. But there was a flag in the crowd, a Newcastle United flag, Union Jack, with Newcastle United's logo on. So the local paper rings us up for comment and says, what do you think about this flag being in the, picture? What does it mean for Newcastle United? So I just said, well, obviously it's a situation which, football fans aren't proud of, and, it's sad to see a Newcastle flag there. So I then get some trouble from a guy at the match. He's not happy. You shouldn't have spoken up about this, and that shouldn't have been said, and who are you to say this, and keep your nose out of stuff that's got nothing to do with you. And I was like, well, all I've said is, I haven't named anybody, I haven't done anything, but I didn't quite understand it. It did escalate. It did get to the point where one of my fanzine sellers was attacked outside the ground, just clumped a couple of times. And it ended up me and this kid, essentially having an exchange of verbals, you know what I mean? And the only way that I could see this getting sorted was having a straightener. And we'd avoided each other or missed each other on a couple of occasions. And I thought, it'll happen when it happens. I'm not going to go looking for it, but it'll happen when it happens. I was prepared. And by this time as well, I'm doing the doors. So I'm not unused to having violence in my life. I went to Derby County away, and usually I get tickets together with my pals. But I decided at the last minute to go to Derby. So I booked this ticket to go to the Derby County game at the baseball ground. So I walk in, got in about 5 to 3, walk to the seat. And I get to the seat, teams are coming out, clap the teams as they're coming on the pitch. And I sit down in my seat, I'm waiting. There's one seat next to us. And you couldn't script it. 3 o'clock comes, and who comes ambling along the road but the kid who I've got bother with. And then as I look around, his pals are behind us, his pals are in front of us. And I'm like, I'm boxed in here. So for the whole game, he was, going on about it, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, I tell you what, I said, next week, let's have it out. To put this to bed, we'll have a straightener next week. I'll be there. I'll turn up. You name the place, let us know, and I'll be there. And the following week, we were playing Manchester United at home. It was October. That's how I know the date so well. It was the game that we won 5-0. And Albert scored over Schmeichel with that chip. But we got the venue. It was going to be close to my house. It was the Duke of Cumberland pub on Sunderland Road in Felon, the Felon. And I lived in the Felon at the time. And I rang my mate, Scott, and I said, will you pick us up on Sunday morning, 9 o'clock? Because I've got a straightener. He went, you what? You've got a straightener? I went, I know. I said, but it's the only way I can get this. It's the only way I can get this sorted out. I said, if I get beaten up, I says, you'll be taking us to QE. I said, if I don't get beaten up, I says, you'll be picking us back up and I'll be fine. I says, there's no trouble for you. All you've got to do is when I give you a bell, I says, come back for us. Right, no problem. So I was at home. I put tracksuit bottoms on, pair of socks, trainers. I put baby oil on, and I stuck my leather jacket on, zipped it up, and he was there bang on 9 o'clock. Took us down. I went to the Duke of Cumberland. It was 5 minutes from my house, and I went down, and next to the Duke of Cumberland, they were over the road. Now the way it was in the time, the Duke was there. There was a little car park on the left, and the car park was surrounded by like bushes and that, so you couldn't see what was in there. they were on the opposite side of the road. And he was with another 2 kids who I knew, who were known to me, friends with him, but they were also friends of mine. So I pull up, and I don't think he expected me to turn up. So I said to Scott, I says, drive round the felon, back here in 5 minutes. If it's going on, or you can't see us, drive round again, and I says, I'll have rang you by then. That's going to take him 10 minutes. So I get out of the car, and I went, how are they? And he goes, you're fighting him? So he didn't want to fight us. He brought the other kid to fight. I said, well, I'm not fighting him, he's my pal. And he went, no, you're fighting him. I said, no. I says, I've come to fight you. I says, you and me have got the problem, not me and him. Now, my other pal is now looking a bit sheepish. He's like, saying absolutely nothing. He doesn't want to fight. He doesn't want to fight me. So it ended up a bit of banter between like the backwards and forwards. And he says, however, we'll get over there. And he wants us to go in the car park. And I went, I'm not stupid. And he goes, what do you mean I'm not stupid? I says, you're telling me there's not a few more people in them bushes in that car park? I says, if you want to have the fight, we'll have it here and have it now. I says, if not, I says, I'm going home. And that was it. As soon he's shrugging his shoulders. He didn't know what to say. Scott comes back round, pulls over. I got in the car and went home. It was the closest I came to having a straightener. I turned up for it. I was brave enough and I was proud of myself for going. What would have been the outcome? I really don't know. I'm not a hard man. I'm not a fighter. But at the end of the day...
Was your ass going a little bit?
It was in the car going there. But when I got there, the adrenaline took over.
Oh, it does.
The adrenaline took over and I was like talking and I was in control of the situation. And the following, obviously that afternoon, I went and sold the fanzine outside the ground. And I uploaded something on my YouTube channel the other day. It's a program called There's Only One Alan Shearer. And you'll see me, water dripping off my head, selling the magazine outside the ground. And behind us, you can see 3 people. And that's him and the 2 lads who turned up that morning.
Right.
And that was the last time I had trouble with them.
Aye.
A couple of years later, we bumped into each other in a bar in Newcastle with mutual friends. And he apologised. And we shook hands and we moved on. So I think the moral of the story for me was, don't be afraid, turn up. If you show people you're scared, they're going to take advantage.
I will lie.
And I just thought, go for it. But Danny, I'm not a fighter, mate. I'm I can do it in films.
Yeah.
And I can play the hard man in the films, but I'm not about violence and I'm not about fighting, mate. And I know a lot of people who are.
Yeah.
And my little black book over the years that I've accumulated, there's some pretty notorious characters in it. But I would never think about ringing them up and asking them to help us in a situation. I've always dealt with my own situations,
Yeah. Yes, mate. One more. Last thing that was on my mind. You ever been charged with anything? You ever been locked up? You ever been
Yes.
Have been on a wing?
Never been on a wing. No, I got locked up one night. When I tell these stories, because I've never really been asked these in this kind of order, they've all got a similar theme.
Right.
Newcastle United's always to blame. Not the football club directly. Don't strike Danny's channel. My supporting of Newcastle United is always to blame. So I was 17. I'd been for 5 pints. Again, familiar.
That was a few years ago.
5 pints of lager.
Did you go for these pints on a horse?
Farmer's Rest pub in Newcastle. So anyone who knows Newcastle, where Marks and Spencer's is, at the back end towards Percy Street, there was a brilliant bar called the Farmer's Rest. And that was my first bar where the doorman would let us in. Had the best jukebox because it was free. So you'd go in and play the Sex Pistols, the Buzzcocks. Honestly, that was my favourite bar. But I used to get in, I'd have 5 pints and I'd be absolutely mortal. And I was with a pal of mine called Paul, who I was going to the match with at the time. And that was when I started going to away games, like on a regular basis. Me and him used to go. And we were walking down Northumberland Street, which is the main shopping street, and we'd got to McDonald's. So went into McDonald's to get like a burger and chips. And as we're coming out, Paul nicks the cleaning fluid bottle off the bench, off where the bin is, and puts it on the ground and starts kicking it down Northumberland Street. Right. So this is like Newcastle United season 88-89. Newcastle have just beaten Sheffield United at home. John Gallagher and Mickey Quinn have scored, and Newcastle are chasing promotion and looking as if they're going to do it. So we're reenacting the goal, John Gallagher's goal, as we go down Northumberland Street. As you get to the bottom of Northumberland Street at the time, on the left-hand side, used to be the Odeon Cinema. It's gone now. But there was a set of traffic lights, and there was cars parked and a van parked, a white unmarked van parked at the traffic lights. So as Paul kicks the bottle, I connect. And anyone who tells you who used to watch me play football, I'd always connect with a man, not the ball. Well, I hit this bottle sweet as a nut. Lofted, bang, lands bang centre in the road. Go like that, you know, cheering. Just as the traffic lights change and this white unmarked van comes round the corner. Side doors open. It's an unmarked police van. Police run out the back. We'll have him. So I'm like, that's me. So I drop me chips and I run. Instinct. I run. So again, if you know Newcastle, I run along the street towards Monument, Gray's Monument. I turn left. By this time, 5 pints and a bag of chips and half a burger. I'm like, even at 17, I'm like, oh God, I turn left and then I see the cash points and turn left again and go up towards the Tyneside Cinema. I get to the top of Tyneside Cinema, which is bringing us back up towards where the Odeon is and the bus stop. And it's loads of match day traffic and loads of people milling around. I stand in the bus queue. I'm absolutely knackered. Breathing heavily. And the next thing I know, I get the hands behind the back. You're coming with us, son.
You probably more got locked up for running away rather than kicking a daft bit of ball.
Well, it gets worse. You know it gets worse, Danny. It gets worse. And this is what I'm saying. I wasn't a bad lad. So I get frog marched to the van. I get put in the van. I'm mortal. I'm absolutely K-lined, and I'm only 17. I get stuck in the back of the van, and I get driven the short distance to Market Street. I get into Market Street. And at the time I had one of them traffic light things on my keys where you used to press and used to come up with different like sound effects on the traffic lights, one of them daft little things.
I remember them.
And all I remember is getting frog marched into the custody suite, the desk sergeant being in front of us. And he starts playing with me. Oh, that's good, that, like, isn't it? So what's he been brought in for? Drunk and disorderly and kicking a bottle at a police van. Right, okay, so he says, how old are you, son? I went, 18. He went, right, okay, what's your date of birth? And I'm like, 16th of the 2nd, 1971. Write it down. Right, okay, and what's your home address? Had to give me home address, telephone number, etc. Right, put him in the cells, let him sleep it off. So stuck us in the cells. A couple of hours later, which one of you lads, and I was in with some of that kid, I can't remember who he is, I was that drunk, I can't remember who he was. Which one of you lads is lying about your age? So obviously they've rang home, they've told me mum and dad what's happened. I went, me, well, what did you lie about your age for? And then I said, well, obviously, I'm underage and didn't want to say anything. And he said, right, he says, which bars were you in? I said, I can't remember. I can't remember which bars I've been in. I'm too drunk to remember. And that was it. He says, right, okay. He says, we'll give you an hour and we're going to bring you upstairs. And we'll release you. So anyway, he takes upstairs. I'm completely wet behind the ears. He says, just sign this, son. So I just signed this bit of paper. I got no idea what the hell I'm doing. Never been in trouble with the police before. And it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I think they're going to give us a lift home. You just got to find your own way home, son. So I had to get a taxi back home. My mum and dad were in. I got the lickings of a dog off my dad. My dad was foaming. My mum was crying. It was just absolute nightmare return home. You know what I mean? And you never go into football again. You're grounded, this, that and the other. I explained what happened, And as I'm explaining what happened, my mum's reading the statement and she goes, well, that's not what it says here. So the statement that the police come up with is that I was running towards the road. I see the marked police van coming round the corner. I kick the bottle at the police van. It strikes the windscreen and I shout, fuck off, you pig bastards, and then run off. And I've signed this bit of paper. Unbelievable, Jeff. So that's it. So then I've got to go to court. And as a result, I was lucky because in the family, my wife, my auntie, at the time was a solicitor, a barrister, and my uncle was a judge. So I had legal representation, good legal representation in my family. bit embarrassing for my mum and dad to have to ask the situation, but my auntie, agreed to look after us, in court. But I got a 12-month bind over for that, because I'd basically signed that bloody confession, if you like, or signed that statement. So 12-month bind over, and that had come off the back of a situation at school. I'll give you the abridged version of this, but when I was 16, just before I left school, and this wasn't me in trouble, this was the reverse. I'd been out with my pals down Seaburn in Sunderland, because I went to school in Sunderland. So one of the lads decided to have a house party. So we all, what his mum and dad were away, he says, look, there's a few bars we can get in Seaburn. Do you want to come down? So we went, oh yeah, it's a great idea. So we all went down to Seaburn. We got to a couple of bars, probably had about 4 or 5 pints again. We're all mortal. And we're walking along the seafront. And as we're walking along the seafront, a silver BMW comes past. And a couple of the lads are sticking their V's up, hey, like that, at this car. This car spins back round, comes up, and it starts to slow down as it gets towards these two, the two kids who stuck the V's up. A couple of lads get out the car and start chasing them. And these are like big lads. We're only 16, we're school kids, whereas these are like proper grown blokes. So they start chasing a couple of the kids across the park. So we all scatter. So, it makes it more difficult for anyone to catch, and we're all drunk anyway. I managed to get into this garden, and hide, and everyone else is scattered. You hear the car screech off and drive off. So I come out of the garden and start walking along. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know where the kid lives. We've met at the bars. We haven't been back to the house yet. And as I'm coming towards the park, I can see on the other side of the park, the BMW going across the grass verge to chase a kid who's run across the park. And then I just see the two kids getting out of the car again, and then I just see them like literally punching the kid, Car drives off. Kids, obviously, I can see the kids staggering and getting up. So I get up towards him, and as I get up towards him, he's getting up off the ground, and it's one of the lads I'm at school with, Rob. I went, you all right, mate? He goes, yeah. He said, my back's snapped. And I said, did they punch you? He goes, yeah. There were a couple of them got out of the car and punched us. So I put my arm around his back. As I put my arm around his back, I felt like something wet on my hand. And I looked round, and it's blood. Stabbed him up. So I literally had to walk him from where he was. I said, do you know where like Jason lives? He goes, yeah. He says, just down there. Got him to Jason's. The lads are all in the garden, all laughing and joking on about what's happened. And I went, he's been stabbed, lads. Unbelievable. So we ended up, had to ring the ambulance and the police. My mate had to ring the ambulance and the police. They turned up, and he'd lost 2 pints of blood internally, punctured lung. It was touch and go for about 2.5, 3 days as to whether he would survive. He did survive, thankfully. We were all then questioned. We had to go into the police station the next day. It was an absolute nightmare. They caught the kids the following week doing the same.
Did you wind up with a caution or something?
We were all fine. We were the victims. Obviously, my mate was the victim. But the kid was caught the following week. He was in his dad's car doing the same thing. And he was caught with a knife in the car. And he ended up going to court. We were all called as, we're going to be witnesses, I guess. You know what I mean? To what was done. We had to go in. We had to say what we were doing, where we'd been for a drink, etc., and why we were there, and etc. But we had to go in and just say this is what we did on that night. But it turned out the kid ended up going to court. He pleaded guilty. The one he'd done, he didn't have a he was caught with the same knife on him the following week. But just dead lucky, mate. But those 2 incidents probably changed my life for the better in one way, because I was very cautious after that. Yeah, I should have been cautious after the first thing that happened at school, even though we were the victims. But the second time, just a daft thing like that, I think that just gave me a different view of the police, because I, a bit naive as a young'un, not having been in any trouble with the police as a youngster, to suddenly have 2 involvements with the police where I'm a victim of something, and I've got to be honest, they made me feel as if I was a villain when my mate was stabbed. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And then the second time round, when I didn't do what they said I'd done, I felt, well, if they're going to set me up for that, who else are they going to set up? And I think subliminally that is why I've gone on to probably defend or support some fairly notorious people, you know.
Yeah, mate, it's a bit of a tale for the conviction that never happened, you know. But
yeah, but other than that, touch wood, no, nothing. And you know, I've lived my life properly in a lot of ways, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I look back and think I'm lucky because certain things, you know, certain incidents could have gone different ways. You know, maybe I have rode me luck in certain ways, but you know, I've not got a criminal bone in my body, and you know, and I'm thankful for that in a lot of ways, you know.
Yes, mate, absolutely. You know, you can tell it's obvious. You know, you've led a pretty straight life. You know what I mean? Which is you know, something I admire, to be honest. You know, it's
never too late to change, though, Danny. And for you, you've changed. You know, I've watched you from my chair. Develop, and you know, I've watched you from those early videos on Facebook. You know, I didn't even know who you were. I'm not going to go into that subject matter, but I remember you doing those videos and thinking, I quite like this bloke. He's straightforward. He's not happy, and he's telling people he's not happy, and that's the way to do it. And I've watched you grow from that to the fighter that you've become now, and the man you've become now. You've gone on your own journey. And being clean for as long as you have been, I admire you for that, because
appreciate that,
that's a hard thing to do. That's a battle in itself. Yes. That's the biggest fight you've won. Never mind the BKB.
100%.
That's the biggest fight you've won.
100%, mate, by far. I appreciate that, and thank you. I've noticed you've had a couple of, you know, decent roles in a few movies. Do you want to rattle a few of them off, mate?
I mean, I'm still at the very early part of it. I'm 10 years in as a professional. As I told you, I started at the People's Theatre.
Yep.
So that was the journey. And then at 17, I stopped. I only got back into it by a pure fluke. John Altman, who people will know as Nasty Nick in EastEnders, became a friend of mine through me and him having a relationship and a friendship with the Cray twins. We both visited Reggie Crane prison at the same time.
Yeah.
And then we both went to the same charity event at the same time, and we liked each other, we got on with each other, and we kept in touch with each other. And John was doing a play in Newcastle called Bouncers. Well, he was doing it in Sunderland, but he was going to live in Newcastle for the 2 weeks that he was up here. But with me being a doorman, he said, can I come up and work a couple of shifts with you on the door to see what it's like being a doorman? And I said, yeah, no problem. So he did. He came up, he worked on the door, like came to the nightclub. The nightclub were over the moon. It was C nightclub I was working at the time, because they had a celebrity in for free. You know, so it was great for them. But he just spent time watching me and how I did, you know, certain things. So when it came to doing the musical and like the play at Sunderland Empire, he sorted us a couple of tickets. So I took my mum, I took me wife. We went down, and it was great because we got to the Empire, and as we walked up to the Empire, there's John on the door. And people didn't even recognise him, didn't realise it was him. So you had John Altman, who played Nick Cotton. You had Nigel Pavaro, who played Terry Duckworth, who was in it. And you had a Geordie lad called Chris Connell. And those three were standing on the door. Evening. You all right? Have a good night. And nobody recognised them. And that's how good they got the role. So anyway, we went out for a night out. And basically, I went out with Chris and with John. And Chris said, Steve used to be an actor, you know. And John goes, yeah, I know. You should get back into it. You know, you'd regret it. And at this time, I'm 30. And I went, it's not for me. Like, I says, you know, that ship sailed. And my missus was there, and she went, yeah, well, you know, he's never mentioned it. Like, I don't think he'll do it again. And Chris said, look, I'll introduce you to my agent. And that's the rest's history. He introduced us to his agent. She was setting up an extras agency at the time, which is like a supporting artist. So if you watch a film or a TV programme, a bit like when we did the film earlier this year, those people in the background are like the supporting artists. Yeah. But they get, you know, those kind of people on a big BBC ITV show get 150 quid a day for doing background work. Yeah. So I registered for that. She gave us the contract, I signed it. And I got a casting the following week for a thing called 55 Degrees North, which was going to be made by the BBC, a new detective series. And I went up for the audition. To be honest, Newcastle again. We're playing the night before, and I'd had a few beers, and I was a bit hungover for this audition. I turn up, the director's been at the match as well, and he's hungover, and he's been at the match. So I walk in the room, and he goes, and bearing in mind I'm supposed to be an extra, but I've been put in for a talking part in my very first role. We ended up talking about football for 20 minutes. He goes, I suppose I better get you to read this script. So I read the script, I did the script, and he went, it was very good, that, Steve. He says, thanks for coming in. You know, we'll be in touch. I'd literally been 20 minutes away from the venue and I got a phone call off my agent and went, hey, Steve, well done, you've got the job. So I got the job. Wheel Clamper 1. It was a comedy role, and it was, I thought I'd made it, mate. I walked out on the day that I went to set, which was in Newcastle. I had my own trailer with Wheel Clamper 1 on the door. I was on 750 quid for the day and literally living the dream. I was like, in my own mind, I'm smoking a cigar. Next stop, Hollywood. The following week, I got a phone call to do Biker Grove. And you're not a proper Geordie unless you've done Biker Grove.
Biker Grove, mate.
But I was playing a security guard, and it was extra work only, so it was 150 quid. I had to be there at 7 o'clock in the morning. I didn't get away. They did my bit at 10 o'clock, and they made us sit there till 7 o'clock at night, and I was foaming. You know, I kept going to the producer. Is there any chance I can go? I mean, you shouldn't do that. You know, any budding actor, do not do that. But I was just annoyed. You know, I've just come from being a £750 actor, you know. Come on, darling. It was like that, you know, proper hissy fit. But I learned the hard way. I just, you know, that I'd come back down to earth with a bump. And for the next 6 years, that's all I did. And then when I was coming off the doors, I thought the only way I can do this, I have contacts. I knew people in London. I could have blagged me way in, I think, to film roles. But me and you are quite similar. I don't like blagging things. I wanted to educate myself, so I went back to school. So at 36, I went and did a GCSE in performing arts at college. I did a Tuesday night course, and that got us back on the stage, which I hadn't done since I was 17. And I did a play called Your Home in the West by Rod Wooden, and I played this psychopathic bully, and I loved it, mate. I got the adrenaline rush that you'll get in boxing. I get it in acting. And I just did this performance, and I can't remember doing it. My mum was there, my dad was there, my brother was there, and I was like, I can't remember doing the first half. And I was like, this is what I should have been doing all my life. I should have chased the dream like I'd intended to, but the young Steve didn't want to do that. So when I finished the course and got my GCSE, I said to me, the lecturer, I said, what should I do next? And the lecturer was actually somebody who I used to go to the People's Theatre with years ago. He says, do the degree. So that's a big undertaking, full-time degree at the age of 37. And at the time, you know, you've got a family as well to consider. But my wife backed us, went, yeah, do it. I only had the one child at the time. And that was it. I went and did a degree. And it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, but I got it, and I trained. I did some great performances, met some great people. But when I turned 40, I went, right, that's it. I'm stopping the extra work, and now I'm a professional actor, and that's 11 years ago. And dead lucky again. You've got to graft in anything in life. You can't expect a handout. And I registered with a couple of websites which were advertising roles. So I didn't have an agent at this point. And there was one came up for a film called In Our Name, and it was about PTSD from the army. And it was going to star a girl called Joanne Froggatt, who literally just become quite famous in Coronation Street. She went on to be very famous in Downton Abbey, but local lass from like Teesside way. And she was going to be the lead role. So I went for the casting as the Sergeant Major, and I got the part off my own back. But when I got onto the set, and did my bits, the director was struggling a bit. Lovely guy, but he didn't have any extras. He had a low budget. He didn't have connections with venues. He was Scottish, who didn't know anybody in Newcastle. So we ended up having a bit crack on the day, and I says, look, there's my number. I says, if you need anything, I run a Sunday football team. If you need any extras, I'm sure they'll be up for it. So then he said, well, look, he says, I need a boxing gym. He says, I need some extras to be soldiers. He says, I need a nightclub. Well, of course, I knew boxers, and I knew I had a boxing gym. I work on the doors. I can get them any amount of venues, and I had a football team who were all keen to do it. So that was it. I became useful to the guy. So he invited us to the rap party, and at the rap party, he came up and said, Steve, you've been a massive help to me. Is there anything I can do for you? I says, get us an intro to the casting agent. I says, I need an agent. So he introduced us to a woman called Sam Claypool from Darlington, who was an agent at the time. And the rest's history. I went down, I did a 45-minute meeting with her, and she took us on, and you know, that was the launch of me acting career. And you asked, I've gone all around the houses to answer the question, but I guess people know it's probably best for Rise of the Foot Soldier. It's such a massive franchise.
Yeah.
I did the third film. I played Steamboat in that with Sean Ryder. Did a couple of really good fight scenes with Craig Fairbrass. You know, for me to be involved in that film was a massive plus. The director, I'd got to know the director well, and he's become a good friend. But I'd done that, and that established us, it put us in the frame, and it gave us something for me show reel. Yeah. And then as a result of that, you know, I've gone on to do things like Vera. I played a character called Big Pete and Vera, who was,
I used to love Vera,
channeling illegal immigrants through his restaurant in exchange for food and not paying them. And then I've produced stuff. So, you know, I've done documentaries. I think the one I'm most proud of is Fred. We did Freddie Foreman's final documentary.
Yeah.
Fred's been a good friend of mine for 25 years, and with the permission of him, and we did this warts and all documentary about his life, his times, and where he's at now. And you know, it's something that stands the test of time. And now I've gone on to writing films. COVID changed things for me. I couldn't do the events that I'm probably best known for. I ended up writing a script called A New Breed of Criminal, about the Sayers family in Newcastle. Yep. And I'd written the book with Stephen Sayers called Tried and Tested at the Highest Level. Yep. But then I did a second book called Operation Sayers, which is what the film is based on. And I did the documentary with Media Arts and Neil Jackson about Stephen. So the natural progression was to do a film, but I didn't expect to write it. But I found it was easy. I sat down, I wrote it. The script was formatted by a director called Richard John Taylor. And then, you know, it was just a case of where we would get the finance. And I didn't think we were going to get the finance. And we didn't really, in a lot of ways. But then, sadly, last year brought, you know, cancer back into my mum's life. And my mum had battled cancer twice. She'd beaten it twice. And she'd had a 15-year lull, and then it came back with a vengeance. And at the start of last year, I was constantly visiting my mum in hospital. Hard thing to do, very hard thing to do, something which, I would really feel sorry for anybody who is going through that now. It's not easy, but you have to be there for your parents. They're the ones who gave you the opportunity to live. And my mum and me were very, very close. We were like brother and sister. And I was there for her as much as she was there for me in my life. And we got through that period of being in the high dependency unit. She got back on the ward. I thought she was going to come out. She was starting a rehabilitation. And then, bang, just came back with a vengeance. And, you know, we lost her on the 7th of May last year. After that period, obviously, you know, we had to go through the horrendous situation, which is clearing the house and sorting all the bits and bobs out. And my mum had left everything to me and my brother. And I thought, what better way to pay tribute to my mum than to do this film in her name? So that's what I did. The money that I was left, I decided that I was going to invest it purely in the film. Because otherwise I could have been waiting around for this film to be made, and it was never made. Yeah. And I've seen that happen so many times where people have promised things and not delivered. And I'm not that kind of person. If I say to you, I'm going to do something, I'll do it. And I might not be able to do it straight away, but I'll by hook or by crook, I will do it at some point. Yeah. And that's what I've decided to do. And with me putting the money in, it's good money because it comes from my mum. It might bring us a bit of luck. But on the flip side of it as well, it's just an opportunity to give people in the Northeast an opportunity, because there's people a little bit further afield. There's so many good actors in the Northeast don't get a chance because all that happens is it's the same old faces get the jobs. Yeah. I decided to give me mates a chance, and that's what I've done. And it's not at the detriment of the project; it's at the benefit of the project, because there's so many wonderful performances as people will see when the film comes out this summer. But it also gives us the opportunity to give people like yourself and you know, Gary Furby, Fergal Allenby, people who I've known for years, just as either fighters or doormen, give them an opportunity to be in something, to say, oh God, I've been in a film. Yeah. And you know, that in itself's special. And I think when we all sit and watch it this year, we'll take it for what it is.
Yeah.
It's an entertainment. It's a film, and it's something that people will thoroughly enjoy. But for me, more than anything, it's a tribute to me mum Celia, and God bless her.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, the day I had over there filming, I thought was special. I'll never forget it. Obviously new to me, being part of something like that, and been in a film, in the movies, So it was good. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, like we spoke about earlier, the best part for me was, be able to have that little bit of input between me and Gary. We could sort of create and choreograph certain things, and that was brilliant. Having that sort of level of creationism, if you like, your own input, which I thought was brilliant, and I thought it paid off. In the fight scene, I thought the fight scene was brilliant, and if the trailer's anything to go off, it looks really good. It looks powerful, and quite explosive. And, personally, I can't wait to watch it.
Ryan John, he was the fight coordinator. He did a great job. I worked with him on a film called Trafficking, which comes out on the 24th April on Amazon and all downloadable services. People will be able to see it. And he worked with us on that. And he probably learned more from you than you learned from him, I think, on that day. And, I think it was just great to see it come to life. It was one of the earliest scenes as well that were filmed, But it was good to have you as the fighters, also to have Brian Cockrell as a referee, and Billy Hardy, a former legend of boxing,
mate, of course.
doing the MC as well.
Yeah.
But it looks great. I'm not going to be involved all the time in the editing process, but I got a chance to see a few rough cuts of the fight scene last week, and it looks fantastic.
Yeah, brilliant. I seen a few of the things on there, watched it, just watching back what they'd filmed there, and then, and it looked class. I must say it did look class. It looked about as real as a fight as I've ever seen, in a acting scenario. It was good.
No, it's fantastic, and fair play to Hello Princess Productions, who came up and did it. They did a really good job. It was shot in 3 weeks, 51 cast members. Final scenes shot in Tenerife, which were fantastic. And we had a good opportunity to have a little bit of downtime there for a day out there. And I think as well, when you just look at some of the names, I think Eddie Webber, who was in The Business and Rise of the Foot Soldier, he plays one of the villains across in Tenerife. Adam Saint, who's done Once Upon a Time in London, Rise of the Foot Soldier, he's in it as well. You've got some amazing talent. Michael McKell, who people will know, from TV, so many villain roles he's played, but also from doing the musical We Will Rock You. He plays like one of the main villains up in the northeast. It's got a really good cast.
It has, and the storyline, even the brief what you get off the trailer, I thought. I remember thinking that, that's got the potential, to do really well. Locally, I think it'll go without saying, it'll do quite well, but I wish it every success, on British level and beyond, and, I really hope it does well, I really do, and I'm sure it will do,
Thanks, mate.
Like I say, it was a pleasure doing that day. You talked briefly, I don't know how much or how little you can say on, a potential second movie.
Yeah, the beauty of a trailer is that gets sent to the distributor straight away. They need to okay it and make sure that they're happy with it. And when the production company sent the trailer to the distributor, they said, would like a second film. So got two options now. They can buy it out, which means there's less budget and the film gets made, but it wouldn't be what I was expecting it to be. So we're back to the same stage. I think they've asked me to write a script. I've written half of it already, and would need finance for a second film. So I think we're in a much better position, because with the first one, you're trying to sell an idea to people and people go, well, you even said it to me today as we're walking here. I saw the trailer, I was blown away. I wasn't sure what it was going to be like. There's a lot of people who were like that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to be rubbish, this. It's going to be like filmed on a cine camera. It's that kind of mentality. I think when people see the trailer and they go, wow, that looks good. If the film's as good as the trailer, this is going to be something special.
Yep.
So I think once the film comes out, I think hopefully we'll have people coming forward saying, actually, I'd like to finance that.
I'd like to be a part of this,
I'd like to be part of it. And I think that's where we'll be. Ideally, it would be nice to be able to make a franchise of it, And I think the one thing I want to make clear, and you're getting really the exclusive, because I haven't talked about the film at all. You're getting the exclusive on your podcast, is that this film is not about the Sears' life story. It's called A New Breed of Criminal. Michael, John and Stephen's characters are in it. And certain stories that we've heard or have been written about are used within the Sears script. However, it's not based in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, noughties. This is based in the modern day. So it's completely different to what people think.
Yeah.
And although people are looking at the trailer going, well, that's that and that's that, it's not. You know, and we're not doing that because we're trying to hide stuff or we're trying to protect something. It's because it's a film. It's because it's entertainment.
Yeah.
And it's because it's based on characters who, you know, it's based on people who are alive and who are, who we know and who we've written about. But it's a film, mate. It's entertainment.
Yeah, and it gelled together for filmmaking purposes, you know?
Exactly, mate. Aye. And that's the great thing, because now with the second script, I can go where I want. Where the first film finishes, I can now go and do what I want with a second film, and hopefully that's what will happen, you know. I'm not going to make any promises to people and say there's definitely going to be a second one, but people can tell, you know, I'm halfway through writing a script. I'm not going to write a script unless I think it's going to happen. I'd love it to happen, but to do it, we have to have money, and you know, I won't be financing the second one. I just hope people enjoy the first one and want to get involved in the second one.
Yeah, bingo, mate. I'm sure it will, you know, and I wish you every success with it. Couple of kind of closing questions, you know, before I give you the chance to say whatever you like. Someone I like to ask people, you know, where would you like to be? You know, where do you see yourself, say, in 5 years, 10 years? You know, have you got any goals, aspirations? You seem to have led a pretty decent, straight life, you know, and I admire and respect that, you know, but maybe touch on the film or whatever you're thinking, you know, where would you like to be in, you know, in 5-10 years? Where can Steve Wraith see himself, you know, from a visualization type standpoint?
I think the most important thing to me as I get older, and I'm 51 now, is just having me health, especially after what happened with my mum. It's a realisation, I think, and a lot of people have had this through COVID, when they've lost loved ones. It's the fact that we're not immortal. You know what I mean? Yeah. We're all susceptible to life suddenly taking a turn for the worst in whatever way.
Of course.
And I live each day as if it's my last.
Brilliant.
And I genuinely feel that I'm blessed because I've got a wonderful wife. I've got wonderful children.
Yeah.
And all I really hope for is that in 5 years' time, that we're all still fit and healthy, that we can all still pay the bills, and that we can all still, you know, avoid misfortune, but also have a little bit of money to spend on things that we enjoy doing, you know.
Yeah.
I'm a really simple bloke like that. If we're talking professional, I've never planned that far ahead, Danny. I think what I'm master at is knowing when to quit. I knew when to quit the post office. I quit acting early doors. I think it was probably the right thing to do at the time. I regret it in a lot of ways, but then it wouldn't have taken the turn that it did. I knew when to quit the doors. And we haven't touched on the boxing, but I knew when to quit the boxing on the unlicensed and on the pro scene. So my life is all about knowing when to quit. And I think, you know, certain things, certain things in my life, I've had to reinvent myself. So the acting now is my focus. I still do books, but I'm not writing as much now. And I decided after COVID, I'm gonna push this acting thing as best I can and do it as best I can, and that's where I'm at. So I'd like to think in 5 years' time on a professional level, I've done a lot more films, I've done a few more documentaries, and I'm a bit higher up the ladder. That's where I'd like to be professionally.
Yeah, nice one, mate. That's good. Some good stuff there. You know, first of all, before I say what I'm going to say, which relates to what you've just said, I never touched on the boxing in the first time we met, because once I'd said it, I knew kind of where it was going to go. You know, it was going to highlight a specific incident, which I probably can't even be bothered talking about. Do you understand?
Yeah.
You know, so I've left that alone. You know, that's a conversation for another time, if you like. But more so there, what was running through my mind was when you said, you know, about your health. I've never wanted to be anything. You know, I've never wanted to be anything. I've never had no goals, no aspirations. My whole life I've had no direction. I've been floating around, you know. Now, today, since I've been clean and, you know, especially over the last 6-8 months or so, it's them little things that I've took for granted for so long, you know, my kids, my health, you know, and not just the little things from day to day. This now, just having this chat and this conversation and doing this podcast,
Yeah.
you know, I can really appreciate that. You know, it's not just, I'm not just reacting to it, it's happening right here, right now, and I'm part of it.
Yeah.
You know, and that happens to me all the time. You know, and I live in them moments, you know, them little things, which is all I really need. Do you know what I mean? It's all I need. You know, obviously to be healthy and to be happy and to have a couple of notes is nice.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people take their eye off the ball. They take their eye off the little things. They take their eye off the things that really count. You know, relationships, you know, family, like you say, health, you know, and just them little things, them little wins that we can get day to day basis if we concentrate on them, and if that's our perception of them, you know,
Yeah.
we can win all day, every day if we want to, you know. But it was an interesting point, that, because, you know, a lot of people can they can. How can I put it? Success and drive is a brilliant thing, you know. But when you can have too much of that, you know, you can take your eye off the little things, you know, and the little things are really important to me right here, right now, you know, and I live for them, you know, I live for them little things, you know, and I live in the moment, you know, and that's
I've grown up.
Yeah.
It took us a while, mind. I still think I think when I got to my 40s, I still thought I was 21. You know, I changed my direction with me health when I turned 40. When I turned 40, I told you I got up to 17. I was 17.6, 17.7. And I thought when I got to 40, I went for you get called for a health check. You get an envelope through the door from your doctors, and you had to go for this health check. And, you know, I was not obese in my mind, but clearly for somebody who was 6'2", I was carrying a bit of weight around the midriff, and I was probably a bit podgy, a bit fat, you know. Didn't see it because I held it well because I'm 6'2", but I thought, you know what, I'm going to change. So I started going back to the gym, stopped lifting daft weights, and just started doing cardio. Yeah, and I decided one day I'm not going to have any more lager. I'm going to stop drinking pints, stop drinking Budweiser, stop drinking Beck's, other beers are available, stop drinking all of that stuff, and stop drinking real ale, because I used to go out with my dad. I used to go out on a Friday night and drink 10 pints of real ale with my dad and never bat an eyelid. And I stopped beer, and I've never had a drink of beer since. I went on to vodka lime and sodas as an alternative drink, and I started gradually with the exercise and with that to lose weight. And when I started losing weight, I got down to about 16 stone. I thought, you know what, actually I'm enjoying this. And then I started paying attention to what I was eating. And I started cutting out the crap and started replacing it with other stuff. I started to measure my food. You know, I started to get a bit obsessive with it. But I got down to a weight like I am now. And at 51, I'm probably the fittest I've been since I was at school, you know. You know, and that's a good thing. But a healthy body equals a healthy mind.
Yeah, of course.
And I think
they go hand in hand.
Exactly, and stopping the mad life that we once lived as well. That helps. You know what I mean? Coming off gear for you has been a massive plus point. And you know you probably look at photographs now of yourself a few years back and go, my God, that's it. That you look 10 years older.
Aye, mate.
Now you look great. Do you know what I mean? And that's what I did. I changed myself in that way, and that's power of mind. That's the hard thing. If you can change your way of thought and realise, actually, I'm being stupid here. That's it, you know. James English, another one. You did a podcast with him recently. I did one with him before COVID. Yeah, that's right. He did the same. Look at the clip of him before he started doing podcasts. You know, he was, and he'll tell you he owns his story. Yeah, and he's got a great one. And there's a few people out there who've done podcasts who've turned their lives around, and I think it's great because people like yourself who can go on there, I'm quite happy talking about it as well, you know, to say this is where I was, but this is what I became, and I think it's a powerful story, you know. Yeah, absolutely, mate. You know, of course it is. It's funny, you know. It's funny. It's not funny, ha. You know, it's funny, peculiar, how, you know, me for an example, you know, I lived my whole life thinking I knew everything. You know, I thought I knew everything. I thought everybody else was a divvy, and I was the only sane person on earth. You know, why can't people get this? Do you know what I mean? Why are people so stupid? Why are people so blind, narrow-minded? All this stuff. You know, when it's funny. You know, it was me. You know, it was me. I was never stupid. Yeah. You know, but my
I exhausted all the wrong avenues, thinking I was clever.
Yeah.
I wasn't. I was wrong. I was on the wrong avenue, the wrong path, the wrong direction for so long.
Yeah.
Eventually when you get a little bit of clean time and that, you're like, your eyes start opening.
Yeah.
You start becoming aware, and then you're acutely aware of like not only what you were, but what's actually went on.
Yeah.
Like it's a funny thing to think everyone else was stupid and you weren't. The irony is you were actually hurting a lot of these people.
Yeah.
And it's all right to say we're sorry. We're sorry. Anyone can be sorry. Anyone can say sorry. But to actually realise how it was for them during this time, the realisation of that changes you. It changes you when you're ready. You have to be ready for these things. Of
course you do, yeah.
You said about growing up. It's about being ready for anything. You've got to be ready for recovery. You've got to be ready for faith. And you've got to be ready for ultimately a change. And it's a beautiful thing when you get there.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's probably a conversation with the other day about the Freemasons, but I got into the Freemasons, something which some people ridicule you for, but that gave me something a little bit different. I took on the Freemasons because I was approached to be in it by the local by somebody who I used to know from the boxing club that I used to go to when I was a kid. And he asked me to go in. He said, look, he says, you're a local businessman. He says, you'd be ideal for this. He says, we'll raise money for charity. Would you like to come in? And I said, well, I used to be in Rotary. Rotary was a thing I used to do with my dad and my granddad.
Tyneside.
I used to do that, and used to go on a Tuesday afternoon. Used to go for a bite to eat. Used to go on the raffle, and then you do like a bag. You do bag packs at your local shop.
Didn't they used to have something to do with the amateur scene and that?
Yeah.
Because that's right. I remember I boxed on a few of the shows at Hilton Castle and these type of things. Yeah.
So basically the Freemasons for me is like a glorified Rotary. The difference is you've got to learn your ceremony and you have to wear a pinny. It's as simple as that. It's exactly the same. Plus you've got to pay a fee to be in the Masons. So you pay your subs, which is like an annual fee of something like 120, 130 quid, depending on which lodge you're in. And that goes into Central Lodge in London, and that's a charity. So where does that money go? Well, when there was a terrorist attack in London, and there was all those stabbings on the bridge, you might remember there was a helicopter comes flying in. It was a red helicopter and lands on the bridge, on Westminster Bridge. On the back of it, donated by the Freemasons. That's where the money goes. The first, and whenever you see England or the UK donating to, say, the earthquake that's just happened in Turkey, the Freemasons are one of the first organisations to put money in. It's as simple as that. That's where the money goes. I got involved, because my mate asked us. I've been asked 3 or 4 times and I'd said no. But I got involved because I thought, you know what, that's going to give me something different. It's going to give us a bit of discipline. It's going to give us a routine. It's going to give us a completely different set of friends. And I went in 8.5, 9 years ago now, and I didn't know anybody in there apart from my mate who introduced us. And I've loved it, It's a completely different thing to do once a month. I think we do it 9 times a year. And I've enjoyed it, but it's also, for me, when I'm not acting, and I've worked my way up the ladder, it gives us a chance to learn things. So I'm continually keeping my brain ticking over, learning the ritual, which when it comes to learning words, as an actor, it might sound strange, but it's like you training for a fight. You've got to get your muscles ready. You've got to get your body ready for punishment and for handing out punishment. When I'm training for an acting part, I've got to keep my brain ticking over because it's very easy for that muscle memory to switch off and not be able to learn lines. So that was, funny enough, that was the reason I went in. Do I regret it? No, because I've made some great mates. Do I get any advantages from it? No, I don't. I've not had one advantage. I've not had not one bonus from being in it other than friendship. And we've managed at our lodge to go from having a lodge of the average age being 70 to probably getting it down to the average age of 45. Got lads who work offshore, got lads who run veterinary surgeons, got, lads who, run media companies. It's now become like a little bit of a social with kids my own age, and that in itself's been great. So, as I say, it gets frowned upon. People think it's sinister. People think it's this, it's that. But you know what? I'm proud that I've joined the Freemasons, and it's something that's given us a bit of direction, and again helped us grow up. Danny, I think that's the key.
Yes, mate. Yeah, absolutely, brilliant stuff, mate. I've enjoyed this today, mate. I think hopefully it'll give people a little bit of more of an insight, into the man himself. There is one more question, mate, before I give you the time to shout anything out. You can mention anybody you want. You can give your new film a mention. And Any advice, mate? Or let's just say that there's some young potential actor watching this, who would like to get into actor, to be, maybe do some of the things you've done or above and beyond some of the things you've done. What would your advice to them be?
Always network, I think, is the key. Make sure that nowadays you're lucky you've got social media. So you've got, make sure you've got a presence on social media. Make sure that you've got, another trade, something else you can do. Because for me, you can be waiting around for acting jobs for 6 months and then 3 come up once. So you have to have something else to do. But if you're creative, be creative. Go to watch theatre, go to watch movies, get involved with local theatre groups, if you're not already. But just keep active, but also keep promoting yourself. I think the one thing that I am is a self-promoter, and you've got to be when you're in my industry. And that's whether you're acting, whether you're doing events, you have to promote. Gone are the days of, and gone are the days of, people coming to you. You've got to put yourself out there. It's why reality TV has become so important, because people see reality TV now as a shortcut to success. It's not really. Yeah. It's a shortcut to reality TV, and then that's it. Even if you go onto a reality program, you've still got to work at your PR. You're putting yourself out there, and I've constantly done that. Whether it's through true crime, whether it's through doing events with former players and comparing events, or boxers. It's about just making sure that you're publicising yourself. But you get nothing in this life for free. You've got to work hard. And acting is exactly the same as being a footballer. I'm afraid only 1 in a million really have that opportunity to be the top star.
Yes.
It is hard work, and you might find that you're not getting what you thought you would get out of being an actor, but you only get out of something what you put into it as well. So just be your best, and never give up. And if you get a rejection, that's probably the biggest lesson to learn. If you get a rejection, don't take that to heart, because we all get rejected. As actors, we get rejected time and time again. We'll go for castings, sometimes online, sometimes face to face. You think it's gone really well, you don't get the job. It happens to us all, and it happens to everybody. It happens to the greatest of stars who probably go for a part that they want. There'll be people going for James Bond who think they're a shoe-in, and they won't get it, and they'll be disappointed. And that happens to everybody, even at the top level. So you learn from those knockbacks, and you move forward. Just keep moving forward. It's like a boxer does.
Yeah. Keep
moving forward, and it's you'll not go far wrong.
Good stuff, mate. Good stuff and good advice. Finally, before we wrap this up, anyone back over the northeast, you want to give a shout out to, any sponsors, any channels? I know you're big with Newcastle United. The floor's yours, mate. Give any shout out and mentions that you like. I
want to thank everybody who sponsored me over the last couple of years, really, I guess. John Acute X being a massive supporter when UFC Matters, and the Steve Wraith YouTube channel. He's been there from the start. He's helped with the website, the merchandise and stuff like that. He's become a good friend, and John deserves a big shout out. And then there's Nathan and Gareth Varty, who've got numerous companies. So they've had like Spider VPN is probably the one that sponsored us the most, but Blowhole Brewery, they've got their fingers in a few pies, but they've been a massive sponsor. And Scott from Skips and Bins, who I used to go to the same school as me, although not at the same time, came forward during the pandemic and said, do you need any money for what you're doing? And you've been a big help, and we love the show. And he's been with us since day one, so I guess those ones in particular. But then I've had a few other people who've come forward. There's one from down this way, Mr. Vicky's Hot Sauces. He's a Newcastle fan, Alan Neary. He came forward and supported us as well. But we've just, it surprised me how many people got behind the podcast. We've done a bit of controversial stuff on there. We've walked away from doing as much of that. I tend to do one true crime thing or a different celebrity each week. I mean, this week I'm doing an interview with the guy called Dave, the Banker Dave. So
the Bank of Dave, Burnley lad, isn't he?
Yeah, Burnley lad. So we're doing something a bit different this week. But I mean, I've had David Icke on. I've had, I had Andrew Tate on, Tommy Robinson. Who I know you've just been to see.
Yeah.
So I've had some fairly diverse characters on the podcast, and I haven't had the numbers that maybe somebody like James English gets or Sean Atwood gets. But it hasn't been about the numbers to me. It's
Yeah.
been about doing them. And I see some people go, oh, well, that's only had 10,000 views or whatever. But you know what, Danny? I couldn't give a monkeys, because when I look back, or my kids look back and go, God, my dad interviewed him.
Yeah.
I already had it with Andrew Tate.
Yeah.
The kids were going, you've interviewed Andrew Tate. And, you know, I didn't realise who, you know, I knew he was on Big Brother, he'd done this, he'd done that. But when I interviewed him, it was before all of this controversial stuff. But yeah, I want to thank the guests for coming on, thank the sponsors, and thank the viewers, because, you know, without the viewers, you know, then it wouldn't be worth doing. If people weren't sitting watching it, and we hit 50,000 subs a couple of weeks ago.
Excellent.
And I've got to be humbled at that. Like you are humbled with what you're doing.
Yes,
Won't be
mate.
long before you're at 50,000. I mean, when you hit 25,000, I was over the moon for you, because it shows
Thank
that
you, mate.
walking away from that negativity and concentrating on the positives and just being you. People like you. People really enjoy watching your content, me included.
that.
You know, and
Appreciate that, mate.
long may our success both continue, and
Absolutely.
hopefully we'll work together again. The fact that you've showed that you can do this boxing,
Yeah.
but without hitting somebody.
Uh-huh.
You know, you just need the finance to go with it. If it paid you the same as the BKB, you'd probably be doing it every week.
Absolutely, mate.
But you know, I'd love to work with you again, and hopefully
mate.
with films, if I can progress up the ladder, I'd love to be able to help you out and get you in
Brilliant,
and
mate.
do some stuff as well. You know,
Yeah, mate. You listen. You've got my phone number, and you know, anytime we can do a live or something on your channel. You can interview me. You know, anytime you want, mate. It's not a problem.
yeah, great stuff, mate.
You know, and just to close on that, what you said about the views. You know, very often my podcasts, you know, they do mediocre to little views, and you know, the way I see it is this. You know, if the character or the subject matter or the what's been discussed, you know, interests the people that want to watch it, then that's brilliant. You know, I'm not appealing to everybody. You know, you can't. And I think what's important is, you know, me and yourself and other, you know, podcasters out there, you get the right views off the right people for the right reasons. You know, I don't expect ballet dancers or anything to have much interest in this. You know, but people who follow yourself or maybe have an interest in, you know, acting or Newcastle United or something, you know, they're the people we try to appeal to when we've got, you know, the characters, you know, for that audience.
Are you a football fan?
No.
I
was a pretty good winger at school. You know, and
you've got the build of a winger. Like I thought, you must have played at least.
Pretty good winger at school, mate. And I found the boxing, mate. It took over. It was one of them. It was 3 nights a week on either ones, and I didn't have time to do both. So the boxing took over, you know, and I'm glad it did, to be honest.
Well, I did. But finishing off, there's a little story for you. Boxing.
Yes,
did I ever box? I used to train at St Patrick's Boxing Gym. It's St Patrick's Church at the bottom of the Felon High Street. Glenn McCrory and Davy Gregory's gym.
Glenn McCrory.
And I walked in, and that was the first place I met Gary Furby, who was an up-and-coming pro at the time, who Tommy Conroy signed.
Yeah.
And I went down, I was doing the training. Bernard O'Hagan was taking the training, and I was training in there that day with Billy Hardy, Glenn McCrory, and Terry French. And I was doing the circuit training with them. And Bernard O'Hagan was taking us through it, and there was a big Asian kid in who was the same height as me. And we did the circuit training. And the lads all went in and they all did a bit sparring and did a few rounds, and come towards the end and went, Steve, do you want to get in and do a bit sparring with this lad? And I looked at him and thought, I'll get in. I'll do a bit, you know. I'm fit, you know, I'll be all right. I think I was 18. I'm not being funny, mate. I got in that ring. Wasn't nervous, and I thought I'm gonna be able to cope with this kid. Oh, this kid he'd only been coming for a couple of years, hadn't he? He boxed me head off, and I was managing to avoid him, giving them the slip, etc. My footwork was terrible, and I just laid myself wide open, and there was this big right hand just come straight down the middle, bop on the nose. He didn't put us down. But I saw stars, mate. I saw them birds flying around, and I never got back in the boxing ring again. Apart from to congratulate me fighters when I did the unlicensed and the pro. But I knew from that moment, boxing wasn't for me.
Brilliant, mate. Listen, Steve, it's been an absolute pleasure. Put it there, mate.
Top man.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Not a problem, mate. We'll go and have a bite to eat or something, yeah?
Yeah, good stuff,
Sound,
mate.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye for now. Hope you enjoyed.
This week's podcast is sponsored by Show Me the Money competitions. They are on Facebook, Instagram. They have a range of prizes from cash prizes, properties, holidays, and vintage cars. Join now for your chance to win.